Okay, let's do this. When Dehya first released, pretty much everyone clowned on her, and you've probably heard it all. Basically, we're talking about low damage, the inability to run Xingqiu and Alarm with her, some insane ER issues, of course the Burgeon Meme that Sir Jeff came across, the fact that her defensive utility seemed rather unnecessary if you just bring a Shielder or a Toma or Zhongli, and the fact that jumping cancels her ult, which is kind of hilarious if you happen to get frozen. So today I wanted to have a look at how Dehya is and all the new things that came around when she first released and now where she is today. Is she still completely and utterly useless, or is she actually in a pretty good spot, or is she just somewhere in between? Let's begin. Obviously, Hoyoverse doesn't make a habit of buffing characters post-release, with the notable exception of Zhongli. Basically, the Chinese community backlash hit really, really hard, and that's what made it happen. Doesn't seem like it happened with Dehya. So, maybe we don't care enough. Of course, whenever a pyro character first shows up, the first tool that we try to use to make them do a lot more damage is, of course, the Vaporize reaction. But Xingqiu and Yelan don't function with Dehya's ultimate. They need normal attacks. Kokomi and Mona are both fine, but they're probably on the Circle Impact side and don't have enough Hydro App either. And I'm not really sure about Burst Ayato, so let me know about that in the comments below. You know what I'm leading up to this? Good old-fashioned Farida. No Circle Impact, Hydro application without restriction, and of course, some good old-fashioned damage buffs. And just as a baseline, it seems like Farina's Salon Solitaire can actually keep up with Dehya's Pyro application. So if you want to do that kind of Vape Dehya gameplay, I'd say it's a hell of a lot easier now to achieve with Farina. Of course, I'll talk about it in a sec, but if you want to add a bit of flavor to your Vaporized team, you could potentially play over Vape. It actually could work. Being able to vape consistently with her is cool and all, but not being able to ult every 25 years is going to make it all seem rather pointless. But thankfully, another character showed up who seems to really help Dehya. In this case, and it's of course Chevreuse. Now this character is the first ever Pyro healer who can also buff Dehya's attack. And she can also provide a lot of energy with Dehya so that you can actually deal with her insane ER requirements. At the present moment, it looks like 142 ER on Dehya can get almost half her ult back if you just funnel Chevy's skill and Fav particles into her. So as a direct result, it might actually be a good time to have a look at playing Vodokashas on Dehya now. Of course, Chevy really likes having at least one Electro character in the team, so if we're trying to put Chevy and Farida together with Dehya, we're going to need an Electro character. Preferably someone who heals though, because Chevy herself being a solo healer is not going to be enough for a Farina team. Otherwise, you just bring A. So a healer who can preferably heal the team as well. We don't exactly have that because it's not going to be Shinobu. But it is going to be C6 Dory. So it's Dehya, Dory, Chevy, and Farida. This team does seem to do quite alright. I am, of course, clearing Spiral Abyss flaws that aren't particularly cringe against this team, and it's in a nice amount of time. Doesn't seem to run into any particularly egregious energy issues either. We're talking about 142 ER Dehya as opposed to the usual, like, 200. The only thing I'm not 100% certain about with a team like this is the healing cycle in order to maximize Farina's buffs, because I thought that it was supposed to start recording on cast, but it seems like maybe it's on the end of the animation of the ult. I don't know. But does this make Dehya suddenly do Hu Tao levels of damage? Well, no. But that's not the point of today's video. I'm just saying that Dehya seems to be an actually playable Vape DPS character now because we have such better Hydro options, and of course we have the first ever Pyro healer battery attack buffer for her, so it is in fact possible. With Chevreuse being an option, you don't actually have to run a Vape team either. You could just go for a good old-fashioned Overload Mono Pyro team. That's also pretty good as well. I've done a video on this when Chevreuse first came out where I talked at length about it, but suffice to say, Chevreuse is a pretty good battery for Pyro characters like Dehya. I can confirm that the Sir Jeff Burgeon meme is still very much in effect. It's odd to me that Dehya still can't trigger Burgeons if the enemy is too tall or too high up. This is mainly a thing for Ruin Graders, so yeah. But that doesn't mean that there aren't Burgeon lookalike teams that Dehya can still be pretty good at. And this, of course, brings us to Neuvillette. Specifically, forward vape Neuvillette. I've talked extensively about forward vape Neuvillette when Nuvi first dropped, so suffice to say, this is a team that you could use Shangling with, but whilst Pyronado does result in a lot of Pyro app, you do need to use Shangling's ult if you want to make that work, and good heckin' luck getting her ult back if you're not bringing along a battery. But since Chevreuse is not involved in this team, thus we don't have that battery, I think the higher is actually a little bit better, because you're only going to be relying on the highest skill, and that's only going to be triggering burning reactions. That's really all we need. And also the defensive utility coming from the highest skill is going to be useful for C0 Neuvillettes. And, you know, you might get some Burges as well. So, Neuvillette's introduction gave the High, in my opinion, a pretty solid team, where the other side of her kit becomes very important and quite useful. Now, when the Higher first released, it was often said that her otherwise nice in a vacuum defensive utility was kind of redundant because we had shields like Zhongli or Thoma. I feel like since Fontaine, though, I've been seeing more of a value in the highest defensive utility. Now, shielders still provide the exact same defensive utility, provided the shields stay up, and their shields tend to last longer than the highest field. But the highest field lasts for a fixed period of time. It doesn't matter how much damage you sustain. The field doesn't break. That is because of that second point that I think it becomes more important, as I feel like when Fontaine dropped, we started to see more enemies that do a particularly high amount of damage. And I'm mainly referring to things like local legends. Have you ever fought one? You know what I'm talking about. Coppelia and Coppelius in the Spiral Abyss, they seem to do so much damage that they merely dance on you and you're instantly dead. Tulpa, both in the Overworld and the Abyss, get forward vaped, you Benjamin using schmucks. The anti-grav boss shockwaves in Spiral Abyss, they do a lot of damage as well. Consecrated Beasts, if you remember those Spiral Abysses, oh boy. And even Lava Churls in the Spiral Abyss seem to do quite a lot of damage, at least in my experience. So with the exception of maybe the Lava Churls, I feel like even Zhongli's shield is starting to struggle a little bit, just a little bit, against a lot of these enemies, and therefore, you know, don't forget we have Rift Hounds and also Bond of Life now, you know, things that go through shields. So with all that being considered, I think there's more of a case to suggest using the highest defensive utility. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like her damage reduction also works with your shields. Kind of like in a similar way to how defense works with your shields. Basically, if your defense is high, it reduces the amount of damage that your shield takes. Does the highest defensive reduction field actually do the same? I'm gonna say maybe. I'm guessing yes. And I bring this up because if that happens to be true, you could potentially play a healerless Navia team, for example, and rely on just crystallized shields. Again, I don't know if this is true. There's absolutely nothing that fixes the whole jump cancels ult thing. Look, this was written and recorded before Cloud Rotator showed up, and I'm almost certain that even she cannot do anything about this. One such as her does not possess the necessary skills and abilities required to fix an issue such as this. Just don't fight cryo and hydro enemies, I guess. In summary, whilst the higher is not meta-defining hyper carrier, oh my god, look at her 1 million damage per punch kind of character, I'd say she's still in a hell of a better spot these days compared to when she first showed up. Look, if you really want to play her in any capacity, I think there's actually quite a lot of options available that can be varying levels of interesting and viable, and you've also got some options that existed in the old times, for example, Rev Melt Aloy, Rev Melt Ganyu. Not really a fan of those myself, but those are still things that exist. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about the higher these days? Let me know in the comments, because again, I think she's in a better spot. She's not the best character, but she's not completely and utterly useless is all I'm saying. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Your penance is due!